Hello friends, so for today's video I want to talk about threading. And when I say threading, I mean, I'll start with Twitter threads. So a Twitter thread is when you have a tweet and then you reply to that tweet with another tweet. And then that's already technically a 2-tweet thread, and then you can reply with another tweet, and then you have a 3-tweet thread, right? And I have kind of developed a bit of a reputation for getting pretty good at making elaborate Twitter threads. But I'm gonna go way beyond that because I think that threading is so Twitter threads are an instantiation. Twitter threads are an example of a solution to a specific example of a specific solution that represents, I think, a broader solution to a broader class of problems. And it's not new. So, the phrase sutra, like Kama Sutra, Diamond Sutra, Golden Sutra. Sutra means thread, actually. It's like, it's things that are strung together, and I can't remember if my memory of this etymology is correct, but it's like the same root word as like suture, when you sew things. I think I could be wrong, but it makes sense, right? If it were, but it might not be, so I gotta be careful with what I say. But there used to be ancient Indian palm leaf manuscripts, which were basically ancient Twitter threads. They would have a palm leaf strip, or there's some strip of leaf, and they would write on it, and then they would thread these palm leaf things, and it's effectively like a Twitter thread. Like there's a different. They didn't necessarily number all of them, but you could flip to whichever was the relevant card in the thread. And if you think about it, the Bible is basically a kind of a thread of threads of. It's like you have chapter and verse, right? And each verse is numbered, so people can refer to specific Bible verses by going the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 6, or something like that. And that's a way of presenting information when you have a very large volume of information. Breaking it down into fragments and then threading them is a way of creating kind of order out of chaos, right? And I have gotten pretty good at doing this on Twitter, but I would say that even before I was on Twitter, a lot of what I was trying to do was to create threads of information. And someone once reminded me that in the story of the labyrinth, I believe it is Theseus who has to go into the labyrinth to fight the Minotaur and then get back out. And how did he get back out? It was with a ball of thread, right? What was her name? Ariadne? Was it her? Who gave him a ball of thread. And the idea is that you can go into a labyrinth, right? Something infinitely complex and confusing. And by bringing the thread with you, you can follow the thread back out, right? And that, I think, is it's a metaphor for many things, I'm sure. But the way I'm choosing to see it in this case is that it's a metaphor for making sense of things, right? And I think someone from Mythbusters once said the difference between science and screwing around or dicking around is writing down your findings, right? So any experiment that you want to do, anything that you want to learn, if you want to go on a learning trail, right? And the word trail is significant. You're basically threading your points through your exploration, and then you can. Once you're done with it, you can step back, and instead of being confused by what you did, you can follow the trail, right? So my general principle for navigating complexity and chaos is to thread things, is to lay out breadcrumbs, to do the trail so that you can follow it later, so that other people can follow it, right? So a conversation I had with a friend way back in 2018, and I can remember this because it's in a thread, right, is that the world feels very fragmented. It feels more fragmented than ever before. There's more content than ever to consume. There's a lot of videos. I make a lot of them. There's a lot of blog posts, tweets, just infinite fire hose of information coming from everywhere. How do you manage it? It's also fragmented. And my approach to trying to solve it or trying to manage it, right, is to make threads. So you make a list of all of your interests, right, and then you see each time a new piece of information comes in, like you see something on the news, you see someone tells you something, you can put that in one of your threads. And that can mean literally tweeting it on Twitter, which is something I do pretty often. Or you can sort it into a thread in your notebook, in your, you can put it in a folder somewhere, or you can write it down. There's all kinds of things you can do. But the way is, I'm stuttering. The way to approach it, in my opinion, is not to be too kind of rigid about it. That you should be kind of flexible, because you don't know in advance which things will thread well and which things will turn out to be substantial threads that have a clear purpose, have a clear utility. And so the way I approach it is consider every fragment to be something that could potentially be a thread. And now I'm wondering if I'm wearing this necklace. So I before I made this video, I choose the jewelry that I want to wear, but there's no particular reason. But this is, it's kind of it's a necklace that has kind of that thready, so there is a metal thread running through the middle, and I know this because I also have a bracelet version of it that I broke. And actually, let me get it. It's see, I broke this, but you see that there's a thread running through the bracelet. There's a thing at the end, and I broke the other part, and there are all these beads on a thread, right? And like what starts out as an empty piece of thread can become a pretty beautiful piece of jewelry by adding things to the thread, right? I don't want to sound too wooey about this, although you can get as wooey as you want. In the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna is explaining himself to Arjuna, he says, I am the cosmos, and the universe is strung from my neck like a thread of pearls, if I remember correctly. And there's something profound about the human ability to make order out of chaos, to arrange things in a pattern. And so I'm making the case that any collection is a thread, or any thread is a collection. It doesn't matter how you. This is just the way that I'm choosing to approach it. But you can approach it from any direction you want. I don't want to get into kind of silly nomenclature disagreements about, is a folder a thread, is a thread a folder. I think I have a generative tweet that's like, a word is a thread of symbols, right? Each alphabet is a symbol. A word is a thread of symbols. A sentence is a thread of words. A paragraph is a thread of sentences. A book is a thread of chapters. A chapter is a thread of paragraphs, right? So everything is packaged in some way. Everything is consolidated. Everything is threaded for you, right? By the world. Like the world around you is made up of so a road is a thread of points along a path, right? A line is a thread of points. And a crossroads, cities grow out of crossroads, right? Where there's people coming in both ways, then somebody makes a tavern, somebody makes a shop, whatever, and then it starts growing out. There's a river nearby, it expands. And a city is a web of threads, of many roads, and if you go to some cities have grids, and a grid is a very formalized very formalized, legible order of threads. And then you can have at the intersection of this street and that street, 7th and 9th or whatever. But if you check out older cities that weren't centrally planned, that were kind of emergent before roads, before like cars and traffic and central planning, it's much more organic. It looks much more like a life. It looks more like a. You should go and look it up, man. I realize now that if I were making a more substantial video, I would show you. Like, one of the things that videos let you do is they let you literally show people things. But I'm making these videos kind of rapid fire, and I will probably do another video in the future about threads that's much more succinct, much more edited, punchy, with relevant visuals. There's like sound, cinematics. Yeah, I'll do that eventually. So you guys are the early adopters who get to hear all of these kind of rambly thoughts before I decide what's important enough to polish. But yeah, so a city is a web of threads, some more interesting than others. And when you go for a walk, you are choosing the path that you thread through the city, and you can choose a different path every time, and so on. All of that is just to kind of be excited about understanding the nature of reality, in a sense, like understanding the nature of what it's like to explore and what it's like to put things together and to make sense of things, right? You know, if you want to understand a subject, you assemble the subject matter and you try to find patterns between them, and you try to see, you know, when you double this, what happens? When you half it, what happens? What if you go it backwards? What if you remove this? What if you put that? And each time you do something, it changes. You know, a song is a thread of melodies, and you know, as I build out my YouTube channel, you will see that I'm doing this. I'm basically making, you know, if you look at my YouTube page, every playlist is a thread of videos, right? And I have begun to develop some clarity about the topics that I intend to discuss on YouTube. And you know, I'm gonna have an about me playlist. I already have the first video in there, which is about growing up with a family business. And there's gonna be, I'm gonna make a video about reading, a video about making music, a video about serving in the military, right? Each thing that I've done is like a bead on that thread, right? And so it assembles into this nice kind of a structured experience, right? And you can watch each of these videos independently. You don't need to watch all of them, but you knowing that each bit is part of a thread, right? I think there's a certain promise to that. There's a certain comfort in knowing that things are threaded as opposed to just pure chaos. So threading is also kind of an act of love. It's kind of an act of it's an act of making something a bit more legible, making something a bit more coherent, right? Guiding people's attention. It's also an act of framing, which I'm going to make a separate video about, and I'm probably going to make like 10 different videos about framing because I'm obsessed with framing. Here's the frame of this video, right? And there's stuff outside the frame that you can't see, and everything you do is a kind of framing. Everything you choose to talk about, everything you don't talk about. But I digress from threads. Do I have more to say about threads? I'm making this video without looking at my thread about threads, which is a questionable decision because I can hypothetically, you know, I'm probably missing out on some stuff that I threaded, and so I'm now going to make the decision to look up my thread on threading. So FFF fragmentation. So I can do Twitter search, searching. I've tweeted about this so much. Okay, so this is the, I don't know if you can you see it? This is a bad idea. This is the start of my thread. Fuck it, I'm just gonna talk about it. Interesting conversation with a writer friend earlier about the fragmentation of information. We both agreed that fragmentation isn't actually a bad thing. What's missing and needed is better threading. Twitter threads are a specific instantiation. I can't pronounce that. Instantiation? I'll look it up. Of a solution to a bigger problem. What would be ideal is if all information could be represented as cards, and all cards could be easily threaded. Every book, blog post, video, songs could be represented as threaded cards. Some cards more valuable than others. And okay, so now I'm realizing when I was tweeting this, because I was online, I was thinking about it in terms of kind of digital media and how digital media can be represented and presented in a way that's user friendly. And I do feel that we still have a long way to go in terms of making information accessible to humans. Like a lot of technology is built by technologists who love technology and want to give it as much freedom as possible. You give the tool, you know, you can put 10,000 things in one digital folder. You can't actually put 10,000 things in one like physical folder, right? It's harder. And the physical limit of a physical folder, that constraint is useful because it it forces you to contend with the limits of the human mind, in a sense. And I don't mean, when I say limit, I mean kind of like, you can only remember about 7 things at once. That doesn't mean you can't remember thousands of things, but you can only remember, in a phrase, right? Like, if you want to transmit information from human to human, you should be sensitive to the way that humans receive information. And I know, again, I'm making all these very long videos that is not ideal. What is ideal would be if my videos were much shorter, succinct, punchy, blah blah blah. But I am working with constraints of time, right? I don't have the time to make short videos because that requires editing and cutting and hours of blah blah blah. I'm just putting it out there. Some people who are interested will figure it out, and that will give me the information I need to figure out what I should do in a more compressed, succinct way. What else? In a way, a lot of what I've been trying to do with my personal knowledge management, note-taking, is to assemble an interesting, coherent, useful thread of threads of everything that I care about, a personal web of data and interesting trails and paths that I can share with others. So that has always been true for me even before I was on Twitter. When I used to have a personal homepage, I would I would list out like my favorite things, my favorite websites, my favorite jokes, my favorite GIFs. I had like all these fighting game GIFs that I put on my website. And that's the idea of having some kind of curation or collection, right? You want to assemble the things that you like and share them with people that you like, and then there is a resonance there. There is like you kind of condense all the things that you care about, and then that becomes this almost a bit of a sacred space. And my definition of sacred is something that is meaningful to you. So this is meaningful to me. This is becoming meaningful to me because I wear it on so many of my videos. So I'm imbuing the talisman with meaning based on what I'm doing with it, and that's gonna be another video. But actually, I already have a video about talismans, but I will probably remake it. And let me continue. I have a huge sprawling junkyard mess of workflowy notes, Evernote cards, Google Keep cards, notes, blog posts, etc., etc. And buried in there are entire books worth of interesting and useful information, but it suffers from bad or non-existent threading, constrained by my own memory, right? And the next tweet is, when you use search, Google search, whatever kind of search in your apps, what you're doing is essentially creating an on-demand thread of results or result fragments, right? And so we intuitively understand that Google is useful because when you enter a query, you say, what is something, there's a bunch of results and it's ordered for you, right? And you can dispute the utility of the way in which Google chooses to order the search results, and I have a whole separate rant about that. But it's still useful that the results show up in an order, and the orders should be as meaningful as you can. My cat just came into the room. If you invade my videos, you will be in my videos. Hi. This is Little. Okay, you don't want to be in the photo, right? Do you? Okay, bye. I'll just sit here. Interruptions. Where was I? Fragments, videos, good conversations with smart friends, introduce useful filters and queries that inspire novel and useful threads. The eagerness to be useful to a friend can have this really great forcing function that pulls fragments from your mind. I excitedly share relevant Twitter threads in real life. Yeah, the idea here is, again, it's all connected. It's the idea of sacredness, the idea of sharing things that are meaningful to you. Sometimes you don't know what is meaningful to you until someone else asks. Someone else asks what's important. Someone else asks, why do you care about this? Someone else asks, show me what you like, or just something. And if you care about them to any degree, and I do think that I care about other people more than I care about myself, which is, I think that's probably true for a lot of people in some respect. Like if I cared about myself, I would take better care of my health, right? And so the way for me to take better care of my health is to frame it in terms of, I like other people, I would like to spend more time with other people. To spend more time with other people, I need to stay alive. To stay alive, I need to be healthier, blah blah blah. that's another digression. But you know, yeah, I'm making these videos with the intent of sharing it with other people. That's why I am doing it, and that's why, like, I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you think. I'm not obsessed with the sound of my own voice. I am curious to hear what these thoughts trigger for you. What does this remind you of? What blog posts does this bring to mind, right? So it's a collaborative game. We can all play it together. We can all, assemble our respective threads, lay them all out, and see what are the common factors across my thread, your thread, everybody else's thread. And then if you notice that somewhere along the line of everybody's life thread are certain common beats, right? Then you can make a thread across those threads, and that thread will be very strong. And in when I say strong, I mean because of the relevance between people, right? So I have an idea that I like, you have a similar idea that you like, someone else has a similar idea that they like. Why do we all have the same idea? What is it about our common experience that brings us together, that makes us all have the same experience and all have the same interpretation or complementary interpretations of some event or some experience? And that will become a way for us to become curious about each other, right? So we all have that in common. And then, so what's on each side of that beat for you? What's on each side of the beat for me, right? And so now I'm interested in your life because I'm interested in how your experience mirrors my experience, and how we have differences and similarities, and how me learning about you can help me learn about me. And it's all learning, it's all delight, right? It's all figuring stuff out, it's all nerdy shit. And I love this stuff, right? And we are at 20 minutes, so I think I'm going to stop this here. I'm excited, man. I just thinking about this stuff out loud makes me want to do more, right? I want to make more videos, make more threads, reach out to other people, continue kind of sharpening the stuff, right? Like, this stuff is all still pretty early stage, vague, low production quality, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I'm just going to keep doing this. I know that it's going to resonate with some people, and I'm excited to find out who they are. And let's get this show on the road. Done.